Welcome back to this week's episode of Ninja Talk with the Bunny and the Frog.
Before we start, Owen, I was wondering, have you ever gotten a trophy before?
I have lots of trophies.
Well, not that kind of trophy, the trophy that you get on your hand.
Oh, that kind of trophy? Yeah, I have, but there's no really good ways to take care of them.
Well, now, Owen, that's where you're wrong. There are so many different ways to care for your hands, and in this week's episode of Ninja Talk, we're going to go over all the ways that you can care for your hands.
Please stay with us while we take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all the amazing ways to take care of your hands.
You are listening to Ninja Talk with the Bunny and Frog. Don't forget to follow the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. New episodes every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Dax, what do you do for your general hand care?
Oh, for my general hand care, I like to regularly buff them down using pumice stone to make sure my calluses aren't too big or sharp. This helps me prevent to get rips. It keeps them in the best shape possible, and it prevents them from hurting during practice. So, Owen, what about you? How do you care for your hands?
I also like to buffer them and shave them down, just so that my calluses don't get too big. If the calluses get super big, it's easier to rip. And I also like to kind of like if my hands start to hurt a lot or it feels like I'm about to rip, I like to just drop in training and not risk my hands getting ripped so I can still work on stuff later on. So Dax, what do you do when your hands are like really rough?
When my hands are like super rough, I like to do them right after I get the shower or the pool or something when they're wet. It makes them easier to shave down because they're softer, and this provides it allows you to get a better result. And also when I'm training, I like to not overwork my hands if I notice that they start to hurt. So then that way I don't tear them up and make them worse in the long run. I'd rather just work on balance or warped wall or something for the day than tear my hands to pieces and I'm unable to work on them a lot for a week or two. So Owen, what do you do when you get a rip? How do you care for that?
So, when I get a rip, I usually rinse it out, cut the excess skin. If you want to, you can spray it with a disinfectant spray. And then I like to tape it up and try to train as little as I can on my hands.
Okay, that's good. So another thing is you like to use certain hand creams, right? Such as ᗷITᕼ and ᗯITᕼ. Those are all really good brands. Link in the description if you guys would like to get some of those for yourself.
So Dax, what is your best hand care advice that you've gotten from a teammate or a coach or?
Oh wow, the best hand care advice. I've gotten so much. It's very helpful. Although, I remember one time when I first started getting into competitions, one of my teammates, his name's Callum, he's a really cool guy. Go check him out on Instagram. He always had a hand kit with him when he went to competitions or practice or anything. We had files, nail clippers, that pumice stone that I talked about earlier, and so on. I thought it was a great idea. And now if my hands are hurting while I'm at practice or competition, I always have a hand kit with me that will help me if I need it. And it's so handy to have.
Nice one.
Awesome pun not intended. What about you? What's your best hand care advice?
Really, it's just kind of I've gotten from a bunch of different people small things how to tape your hands in different ways. If you don't really know how to, just go and ask someone who's been training a long time. Most likely they've had it happen to them before and know how to tape their hands if their rip is on their palm or on their fingertips or anything like that. So Dax, what is your best thing to do when you are at a competition and your hands feel like you're gonna rip?
What I like to do is I like to warm up specifically for that area. I like to really focus on that area. I like to use what is it called? I like to buff it down before I warm up, and then I try to just get myself comfortable in that position, the position where it hurts the most. I will typically do pull-ups specifically with that area just to so I just get more comfortable with it, and that way I'm better at a competition for it. And Owen, speaking of this topic, I know that like once or twice that you have torn your hand at a competition.
Yep. So at one competition, I think it was like one of my first ever competitions, I was really dumb and warmed up the whole time. I was running like second last or something. So I was warming up on like really sticky parkour bars for like an hour like before I went. And my palm feels like it was so worn down and gonna rip. And second obstacle on that competition, I ended up like completely tearing up my palm. And it was not very fun. So
Yeah, that goes back to like not overworking your hands when you realize that they're not doing in the best condition. So that's why you would typically stop and maybe warm up your balance or your legs or something and then go back to it. And
Yeah.
another reason to have a hand kit with you the whole time to make sure that if it starts to hurt, you can always tape it, you can or buff it down or shave it or do anything with it to just hopefully make it feel as best as possible for the competition.
Yep.
And don't be like Owen
Yes.
and warm up the whole time.
If you-
Body awareness is super important.
If you do end up ripping in a competition, though, it is the complete opposite of what we said earlier. Don't just drop unless it's like a fun competition. Just like
Bite it off and go.
deal with it.
But that's about it that we have for this episode. Although, before we finish, it's time for Owen's Joke of the Week.
Jax, I almost forgot. So this week's joke of the week is, what is a ninja's favorite type of cake?
Oh, favorite cake? Oh, I don't know. What is it?
Chocolate.
Oh, that's a great joke. It took me a couple of seconds to get that one, but that's really funny. I like that.
Please,
High five, Owen.
please tell us if there's any other jokes, ninja jokes, any jokes that we should do in Q&A. And you might choose some of them to do on a later episode.
And one final thing, we are going to be announcing the winner of the t-shirt design competition next Saturday. I believe it is February 17th. Everybody who submitted has a lot of talent, and we appreciate your submissions. And we'll see you all next week. Have a great week, everybody.